reports to our colleagues in early 1940. Both mirrored the party line at the time. Each was signed College Faculty's Committee, Communist Party of California. Chevalier wrote that the idea for the reports had come from Oppenheimer, who helped to write them and even chose literary references for the epigrams. Herken was not the only one in the Chevalier household to write about Oppenheimer and the closed unit. In her own unpublished memoir, Barbara Landsberg, Herken's wife, when the couple lived in Berkeley, recalled it was shortly after Oppenheimer had read Marx's Das Kapital during a cross-country train trip in summer 1936 that he and Herken joined a secret unit of the Communist Party. Likewise, my interview in early 2000 with physicist Philip Morrison provided additional clues about the closed unit. Morrison had been Oppenheimer's graduate student at Berkeley in the late 1930s. He remembered attending animated political discussions at Chevalier's house. Among others present were Oppenheimer and Arthur Brodeur. Morrison also recalled arranging the publication and distribution of a Young Communist League pamphlet at Berkeley's 1939 Charter Day ceremony. The YCL broadside urged the United States to join with other nations, including Soviet Russia, which has shown itself to be the most consistent and determined force for peace in the world, in confronting fascism. Although Morrison no longer had a copy of the pamphlet, he believed Oppenheimer was its principal author. Subsequently, I discovered the faculty unit's 2 reports and Morrison's YCL broadside at the university's Bancroft Library. But Robert Oppenheimer vehemently and repeatedly denied ever being a member of the party or a Communist Party unit. Sometimes his denials were under oath. Who was telling the truth, Robert Oppenheimer or the Chevaliers? If the latter, Oppenheimer had perjured himself, lying not only on the Army security questionnaire he filled out in 1943, but to FBI agents in 1946 and again to the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission at the 1954 hearing. When I was putting the finishing touches on Brotherhood of the Bomb in 2001, I remained uncertain who was right about the closed unit, the Chevaliers or Oppenheimer. Accordingly, I treated the question a bit like Rashomon. The truth was a matter of perspective. For Oppenheimer, I wrote that the Berkeley faculty unit was simply an innocent and rather naive political coffee klatch. Gordon Griffith's unpublished memoir provided the final piece of evidence, what I came to regard as the smoking gun, proving the existence of Berkeley's closed unit. As I discovered, Griffiths had replaced Philip Morrison as the party's liaison to the faculty unit in 1940, when Morrison took a teaching job across the bay. The Griffiths memoir also confirmed that the closed unit's activities continued into at least mid-1941, and that the so-called Kenilworth Court incident did indeed happen, despite Oppenheimer's denials. I remember especially the meeting that took place shortly after the German invasion of Russia on the 22nd of June, 1941. Stalin had delivered a radio address calling upon the Soviet people to resist. It was an eloquent speech, and Oppie had brought the text to our meeting to read out loud. He was so moved that his eyes filled with tears. If, as now seems evident, Robert Oppenheimer was indeed a secret or closet communist, the question needs to be asked, so what? Chevalier himself said that the unit voluntarily disbanded in early 1942, shortly after America entered the war. Herken likewise acknowledged that Oppenheimer came to him in 1946 to confess his complete disillusionment with the communist cause, and as Griffiths wrote of the closed unit, there was never any discussion of the exciting developments in theoretical physics, classified or otherwise, let alone any suggestion of passing any information to the Russians. In short, there was nothing subversive or treasonable about our activity. Ironically, the best evidence that Oppenheimer never spied for the Russians comes from Soviet intelligence sources. KGB documents that surfaced following the collapse of the USSR in late 1991 reveal repeated, failed efforts to recruit Oppie as a spy. Aware that Oppenheimer was a secret member of the Fellow Countrymen Org, the Russians' term for the American